So let's look at column charts. This is a good chart for showing trends, and sometimes it can be used for proportions too. This is what's called the sort of a normal Excel chart. These kinds of charts were here long before the spark line came along, which was a relatively new form of chart. Unlike spark lines, normal charts do not live inside of a cell. Instead, they sit sort of on or above the surface of the spreadsheet and can be moved around. They are not associated with any individual cell. So to start this process of creating a chart, the first thing you do is select the range of data to chart, and then you insert the chart. So let's say that we want to show a chart for the sales of the small widgets over all those years. So the first thing I do is select the range of data. Now, this sometimes trips people up. In addition to selecting the data itself here, the sales amount, you also want to select the years. And you want to select this cell over here, which is a title cell for small, the type of widget. And when you do that, you also have to select this empty cell up here at C4 in the corner. That's real important. If you don't get that cell included in your range, you're going to wind up with one screwy looking chart. So let's go insert a column chart, which is right here. I want a 2D column chart, and poof. It's just that simple. Now look at how the chart is living above the cell, and I can grab it and drag it around. I can grab an edge and resize it and move it around like that. So what do we wind up with here? We've got money down the vertical axis here, the y-axis, and we have years across the bottom. And the title from here in C5, small, wound up as the title on the chart. That's very easy to create, and you can see from this kind of chart what the trend of sales were. There was a significant dip in 2013 here. So a manager looking at this who was new to the situation and wanted to get a better understanding of what was going on would ask, what happened in 2013? That's easy to spot, that dip. Whereas you have to look at the numbers closely to see the dip here in the data. That's that 15,000 range. 15,986 number represents that dip right there. Hard to spot that dip in the table of numbers, easy to spot it in the column. So that's a simple kind of column chart. I'm going to move it off to the side here. Now let's create what's called a clustered column chart. In a clustered column chart, I can show more than one model. So I'm going to select the whole table here, excluding the total row. I don't want that in the table. And I'm including the titles over here, small, medium, large, and of course I'm including C4 up here because I have to have that. Now let's come up and insert a column chart, clustered column 2D. And by the way, as you move around, you can see what these charts look like. Okay, so what do we got? I'm going to make the chart kind of big. So same thing, we've got dollars on the left-hand axis and years across the bottom, and then we have a legend here. Blue is small, red is medium, green is large. So in addition to seeing trends, like you can see the small here, you can see that small also sold more than large and medium size widgets. It's a little harder to see the trend of the red here. But proportions are pretty clear. You can see that small in every year sold more than all the others, but took quite a hit in 2013 because that blue column is a lot shorter. So in a clustered column chart, you can get trends, and you can also get a sense of proportions. It's a little harder to see them, but you can see that small just has a larger share than all the other sales. Now, so a clustered column like vertical columns side by side shows change across time, and you could get a sense of proportions as well. Now a little earlier in the video I showed you how to format just one series of data. That's when we did the small. But what if you want to do the medium model? Let's go take a look at doing that. So I'm going to squeeze this chart down tiny and move it off to the side. And now when we did the small, we just selected that range, but I want to have this set of cells and the medium, but I don't want small in the image. So what I have to do is, starting with the blank cell at C4, is select the range of years. Then I hold down the control key and select the medium set. So now I've got two ranges selected that don't touch each other on the worksheet, and I held down the control button to do that. Let's go insert a column chart now. And we get that. We get just the medium. Whoops, I wiped it out. Just the medium can be shown by selecting it. What if we wanted only some of the years? So let's scoot this one out of the way over here. And what I'll do is select the empty cell at the top and the three labels, and then let's do 2012 through 2015. So I held down the control key, I selected this, and then I selected that range, and let's insert a chart, like so. And poof, I get just those 4 years for those 3 models. So by holding down the control key and selecting non-contiguous or non-touching areas of the worksheet, I can chart just parts of the data that are involved. Now, let's see, let's go back to the slides, make sure I'm covering what you should have. Let's go in, excuse me, and make the chart a little bit fancier. Let's clean it up and make some sense out of it. I'm going to go back to our small chart that we started with originally. Let's bring that back in here. There's a couple of problems for this. For one thing, the sales up here, let's say the sales are in millions of dollars. We've labeled our chart, but we need to get the thing labeled over here. The other thing is it says small here, but what does small mean? Well, I would like that title to be clear so that the chart can explain itself without me having to be around. I want to be able to show this chart to a vice president and not have them ask me small what. So I'll just come in here, click right in the title, and type small widgets, like so. Now, that was pretty easy to do. Let's go clean up this vertical value. So I click over here on the vertical axis, being sure to click on one of the numbers, not in between them, but right on one of the numbers. Then up here, it's already highlighted the vertical value, and I click on Format Selection. And what happens is this window pops out here on the left and gives me all kinds of choices in terms of how to lay this thing out. What I want here is the number section, so I'm just going to collapse this axis and open up number. And I'm going to say that I want it to be currency, and I don't want any decimal places. So now we've got a dollar sign out there, but I still need to tell people that this is in millions of dollars. So what I want to do is click on this plus here. I'm going to collapse this window and make it go out of the way. I want to click on this plus and say, I want axis titles. So when I check that box, it adds a title down here and here. And I'm going to just come in here and type in this box and say sales in millions. Okay? And that arranges along the left side. Now this axis down here, I could put years in here. But I might decide, you know what, the years business is kind of obvious. Isn't this chart junk? Shouldn't we just get rid of this? Because if somebody says, you know, what are the numbers, 2008, 2009? And doesn't realize those years, maybe they shouldn't be working for us. So I'm just going to click on that years title down there and delete it. And notice what happened when I did that. Let me undo it so you can see what happened. Anytime you get rid of chart junk off the chart, then the plot area here will increase to use up the space. So it gave more, getting rid of that title on the x-axis made more room on the chart for us to display the actual data. So let's see. We've got sales of small widgets, we've got thousands or millions, whatever it happened to be, and there we have the years. So now let's look in a little bit more detail about laying out charts. Let's bring this chart, I think this is the one I want. Let's bring it back and make it kind of big. I'm going to make it real big and let it sit over top of the table. By the way, one of the things that's true is when you resize a chart, Excel will do its darndest to get the chart to show up well on the screen. But if I start taking away space from it like this, it's going to start reducing things. So watch what happens. It's going to start throwing stuff out. Here we're showed at 5,000 increments, 0, 5,000, 10, 15, and so on. But if I start shrinking it, it's going to decide there isn't enough room for that. And eventually, it'll start knocking out values as I shrink it even more. It's trying as hard as it can there. Now it's just 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. It's trying as hard as it can to get the chart to fit in the space that I've made it available. So charts may look a little bit different depending upon how much space you give them to sort of spread out. Now, let's understand the basic areas of a chart. And here in the handout, there's the y-axis. Excel calls that the vertical axis. This is the horizontal axis or the x-axis. There's a legend here that shows the names of the columns. Then there's the plot area, which is this box right here where the actual plot is drawn. And then there's the chart area, which is this background around the back of it. These are important to understand, these 5 areas, because you can format them all individually. All you have to do is right-click on the thing. So let's change this to, well, first of all, let's just change it to sales of widgets over 4 years. Something like that. Now I can right-click on this thing and say I want to change my font to maybe small caps, bold, something like that. So I get a different looking kind of font. I can expand this box and make it bigger or smaller, move it around on the screen just by clicking on it if I want, although generally the title is centered over it. If I want to move the legend to different places, I can right-click on it and select Format the Legend, and I can say, let me move the chart out of the way here. I can say I want it on the right, in which case the legend got moved over here. Let's make the chart a little smaller. I can put the legend, just by right-clicking on it, I can put it on the top or on the left, top right, that sort of thing. Notice how I change, when I change the legend, the chart plot area here moves around to try and take up the maximum amount of space. Let's suppose I want a background on the plot area. I come into the plot area, click on it, and right-click and select Format Plot Area, and I want a fill that is a solid fill, and let's make the color a real pale blue like that, for example, or maybe slightly darker. You can control the transparency, how deep the color is, all the way out to completely transparent. I can put a border around it, a solid line, for example, going around it with a color of maybe a darker blue, something like that. That's a little bit harder to see. Maybe I'll make it a little bit wider. So now I'm getting a border around my plot area that's on it. Let's look at the chart area, which is the white space around the outside of the chart. I can click up here and do the same kind of fill. Let's say I want a gradient fill. A gradient fill allows you to have a light area at one end and a dark at the other. So let's set this color to a darker blue like that. And I can set gradient stops here that allows the shading to go from very light at the top to darker at the bottom. And of course I can select brightness and transparency. You can while away a whole day just messing around with colors. If I want the gradient darker at the top, then I can come here and set this color to the dark blue and this color to the light blue here. And now I've got a gradient that goes the other way. Usually you put the darker color at the bottom of the gradient. So let me just undo that and back it up to where it was, like so. So you have a huge amount of control over the different parts. But look what happened here. I set this dark gradient down here at the bottom, and now it's very hard to read the legend down there. So maybe I'll back the transparency off a little bit to make it easier to read. So it's very easy to control all the different areas of the chart simply by right-clicking on them and then choosing your format capabilities. One other thing you can do to help things out, perhaps, let me make this go away. Let's suppose you wanted the chart to be there with the table on this page, which is not unusual to have a table and then a chart that accompanies it. But you want it to look more like a regular white piece of paper rather than having the cells of a workbook. So you can come up to the View menu and clear the grid lines checkbox, and now you get a paper white background on your spreadsheet. I mean, the cells are still there, but you don't see the borders around them, so it's pure white. So that's the basic layout of a clustered column chart and how to go ahead and do the formatting of the various parts of the chart. making sure that we minimize the amount of chart junk that's on a chart.